There are a few basic camera movements that make up the majority of shots in films. Camera movements are used as storytelling devices by guiding the viewer's eyes around the frame as well as their interpretation of the story. When incorporating camera movements into your own movies, always use them with intention. Ask yourself if the movement is necessary to tell your story or if it distracts from it instead. Also keep in mind that smooth or complicated camera movements rely on high-quality equipment and a lot of practice. As a beginner, try these camera movements, but don't be discouraged if they don't work out. A poorly executed camera movement is much worse to have than just a static shot. Although not technically a camera movement, let's first talk about zooms. Zooms are arguably the most used, and therefore most overused, shooting technique. They can be used to direct the attention of the viewer to a specific detail, as well as to add energy to a scene.
How'd you like some ice cream, Doc?
Zooms are also immediately noticeable, however, and often pull the viewer away from the story to focus on the camera instead. This isn't always a negative effect, as zooms can be used to add visual comedy to a scene. But unless you're going for funny, avoid using zooms just to add interest to an otherwise boring shot. Get creative and use other more effective techniques and movements.
Peter, wake up.
Next, let's talk about handheld camera shots. Popular in mockumentary-style filmmaking, handheld shots add visual tension, realness, and busyness to a scene. They're also widely used in fight scenes to invoke a sense of chaos and unpredictability. While handhelds are often used for on-the-fly interviews, they're a bad idea for sit-down interviews, as they distract from the speaker. Unless you have a specific storytelling reason to use a handheld shot, it's best to just use a tripod. Tripods will help make your work look more professional and prevent giving your audience motion sickness. A standard and widely effective camera movement is the pan. Pans are horizontal swivels from a fixed position, which is a similar motion to a person turning their head to look around. Pans are often used to reveal an off-screen subject, follow a subject, or to show a setting. They're also handy in capturing the action of a scene that's set in a small space.
Thanks for coming out. Thank you. We're expecting some great pieces.
Essentially the opposite of a pan, a tilt is when the camera is moved in a vertical motion from a fixed position. The motion of a tilt is similar to a person raising and lowering their head to look up and down. As with pans, tilts are used to reveal,
Yes, Monsieur Gustave.
follow subjects,
Big people have little humor, and little people have no humor at all.
and to show a setting. The camera also moves up and down in a crane shot, but not from a fixed position. In a crane, the camera is physically moved to different vertical positions, from high to low or low to high. For beginners, only small handheld cranes are easily achievable. Grandiose sweeping cranes for movies require large pieces of gear, specifically the crane, which this movement is named after. Dolly shots are movements in which the camera moves closer to or farther away from the subject. They can also be used to follow a subject. Dollies are made by moving the camera toward or away from the subject, usually on a dolly cart and tracks. In DIY and low-budget filmmaking, dolly shots can be achieved in many ways, such as handheld or with a slider.
Andava con gli amici in una birreria.
A variation of the dolly, tracking shots are used to follow alongside a subject. A tracking shot is also referred to as a truck. In this shot, the camera moves parallel to the subject to capture their walking or movement. There are many types of camera movements in filmmaking, but these should set you up with a good starting palette. Remember that most of these camera movements can be difficult to pull off for beginners, so play around with different techniques and be prepared to spend a decent amount of time practicing.